Hi, everyone. My name is Juan Estrada, and welcome to tonight's District 5 United meeting. And tonight we'll learn about ranked choice voting. And with us is Allie Hughes. I'll hand it off to Allie.
Awesome. Thank you, Juan. Hello, everyone. It's great to be here with you all tonight. My name is Allie Hughes, and I'm the Director of Government Affairs for Canyon Snow Consulting. And we have the distinct privilege of working with the California Ranked Choice Voting Coalition who is working to bring ranked choice voting to Santa Clara County. So I'm just going to share my screen. I've got a slide deck for us to walk through. So great. So today I'm really excited to talk to you about ranked choice voting. This is a simple, equitable election reform that really centers the community's voice and the voters' voices to bring more diverse representation or amongst our elected officials. And it really works to expand our democracy. So I'm excited to tell you all more about this. So, a little bit of background as to how we got here. So, currently, the Board of Supervisors is considering implementing ranked choice voting for specifically our county-wide elected officials. So, that would include the five Board of Supervisors seats, the sheriff, the assessor, and the district attorney. So, those eight elected seats. And for some of you who may have a good memory, you'll remember that RCV was actually adopted by the county voters back in 1998 through Measure F, but it wasn't implemented at that time because we didn't have the technology to count ranked choice ballots. And we also needed a vote of implementation from the supervisors. And so now, Santa Clara County, we have Dominion voting machines, and Dominion voting machines are capable of counting ranked choice ballots. So now all that we're waiting on is a vote of implementation, excuse me, from the Board of Supervisors. And back in 2023, excuse me, state law, so Santa Clara, or excuse me, let me back up. So Santa Clara County is a charter county, and prior to 2023, state law was ambiguous as to whether a charter county like Santa Clara County could run a ranked choice election under state law. It didn't really have an opinion on it one way or the other. It just didn't give direction. And so in 2023, then Assembly Member Evan Lowe um, uh, authored AB 1227, which was a specific district bill that would allow Santa Clara County as a charter county to use ranked choice voting. And the governor signed that bill into law in October of 2023. And since then, we've been going through committee. And so we're going to be going back to the FGOC committee on April 15th of this year for a final review. And then hopefully we're going to be going to the Board of Supervisors later this fall for that final vote of implementation. And if the Board of Supervisors vote to implement ranked choice voting for our county elections, ranked choice voting would be used for the first time in 2028 for the county seats. And I also just want to highlight that the first use in 2028 would be in the November general election because under ranked choice voting, it eliminates the primary. And I'll get into and later in the presentation, I'll get into why there are a lot of benefits for removing the primary. And here it is. So RCV solves the problem of underrepresented primaries. So currently in Santa Clara County, over the last couple of election cycles, we have seen that the average voter in the primaries, regardless of if it was a presidential primary or a gubernatorial primary in one of those off years, the average voter in Santa Clara County was a 62 to 65 year old home owning white man from the Willow Glen area. And that demographic does not represent the vast majority of people in Santa Clara County. And it's not good that that very, very small group of people is then deciding who the final two candidates are going to be that the rest of us are going to be voting on in November. And the reason for that is because currently in our primaries, minority communities, so women, communities of color, young people, the queer community, all of those communities are disproportionately underrepresented in our current primary system. And in addition to that, we're underrepresented because primaries yield low voter turnout, and it's usually the rich, retired people with lots of resources who are able to vote in those primary elections. And as we've seen, primaries produce non-majority winners. I'm sure you guys can think back to a previous election where two people have advanced to the November runoff with less than 20% of the vote. And if you're pulling in less than 1 in 5 of your voters who support you, that's not a great sign. And so if you're advancing to the general just based off of those numbers, that doesn't represent the broader community that they're going to be representing. And so, and then in addition to that, similar candidates often split votes. So, for example, if you have two women running against, there are two women and one man in a race, it's not uncommon that you see those two women split the vote, or those two candidates from the same community split the vote, and then the other person is able to then just kind of sneak in because of the vote splitting. And then, in addition to that, our current system really incentivizes negative campaigning. And I'm sure you can think to any election that we've had in recent years, and there was negativity from either one or all sides. And under ranked choice voting, negative campaigning is disincentivized because you want to collaborate with people and get votes from other people's bases. And in addition to that, the inclusion of a primary really puts barriers to entry for a lot of potential candidates because running a campaign takes a lot of money. You have to fundraise. You have to spend a lot of your time fundraising. In some cases, these races have cost millions of dollars, and that can be a huge barrier to some folks to be able to run for office. And so, under ranked choice voting, by having a single election in the November general, that cuts the amount of fundraising that candidates have to raise in half. So it really opens up a lot of opportunities for people of lower socioeconomic statuses to be able to run for office and be competitive. Okay, and so here I've got a delightful little video showing how ranked choice voting works. So how somebody can cast their votes and then how those votes are counted. And this video was actually put out by New York City when they moved over to ranked choice voting elections in 2021. So I'm just going to hit play here.
Hi, I'm Mahir, and welcome to my bodega. As you may know, New York City has a new way to vote in special and primary elections. So, how does ranked choice voting work? The next time you vote in a city election, instead of choosing just one candidate, you can rank them all from your first choice to your fifth. Here's how it works. Let's say my bodega is picking its featured snack of the month. So many choices. Which one should I feature? This customer ranks Parker Pretzel as her top favorite. She also ranks her second choice, Mr. Chips, third choice, Chi Chicharrones, fourth choice, Gladys Gummies, and fifth choice, Puppy Popcorn. Other customers rank their choices as well. If Parker Pretzels is the favorite choice and wins more than 50% of all the first ranked choices, then Parker Pretzels is the winner and is featured as a snack of the month. However, if no snack gets more than 50%, then the least popular snack is eliminated. Sorry, Piggy Bars. The remaining second-ranked choices from customers who chose Piggy Bars are redistributed. So if customers chose chips and chicharrones as second choices, then those two snacks receive additional votes. The new totals are counted and the process repeats until there's a winner of the final two. Congrats, Poppy Popcorn, you're the bodega snack favorite. Back in the real world, before it's time to vote for humans, visit rankthevotenyc.org for more information. Thank you.
Awesome. Great. So that was a really fun and delightful way to show how ranked choice voting works. And basically, in a simple explanation, you're just ranking in cho you're ranking your preferences in order of choice. So, for example, if any of you are sports fans, like I grew up watching baseball, you know that you understand first, second, and third place. So, for example, growing up watching baseball, I always wanted the Giants to win the World Series, so I knew that they would be number one. If I couldn't have the Giants win the World Series, then I would love to have another Bay Area team win, so then I would pick the A's. And then And then if neither of those teams could win, then I would pick a third team that I would want to have win instead. And it's the same thing. We rank things all the time, every single day, whether it's what movie do I want to watch? What do I want to have for dinner? Do I want tacos, pizza, or pasta? And it's like, okay, I prefer tacos, but if I can't do tacos, then I'll do pizza. If I can't do either of those two, then I'll do pasta. So it's a very intuitive way of casting your vote in a way that we already do day in and day out multiple times a day. Oh, I'm not, there we go. And so ranked choice voting is not a new concept by any means. It's actually been around and in use in the United States since the 1860s, and it's currently being used in a multitude of states, municipalities, and jurisdictions all across the country. So, for example, the city and county of San Francisco and Oakland and Albany all use ranked choice voting for their elections. We see Portland, Oregon uses it. Numerous municipalities throughout Utah, like Salt Lake City. Excuse me. We also have a couple of states like Maine and Alaska that use it for their elections, and then the South uses it for their military and overseas ballots. And in addition to that, we also have millions of college students through the UC system who use ranked choice voting every single year to elect their student body government. So this is again a very um, wide-ranging concept, and it's continuing to advance in other jurisdictions all across the country. And it's one of the most popular and fast-growing election reforms across the country. And so here, I really do want to talk about some of the benefits of ranked choice voting, particularly how it leads to more diverse elected representation and equitable outcomes for our minority communities. So here we see that communities of color win under ranked choice voting. So or through a couple of local examples, prior to using ranked choice voting, Oakland, or before ranked choice voting, Oakland City Council was 50% white, but after implementing ranked choice voting, over 75% of their council is now people of color, much better representing the constituents and voters of that area. And similarly, in the 4 big Bay Area cities that are currently using ranked choice voting, 61% of those elected offices are held by people of color, up from 38% in those same cities before they implemented ranked choice voting. So that's nearly doubling the representation on those sitting bodies. And similarly, we also see that better representation is that better representation under ranked choice voting transcends the area, regardless of if that area or jurisdiction identifies as more progressive or more conservative. So in Salt Lake City, they had previously had an all-white city council, and after their first election using ranked choice voting, 4 out of their 7 council members are now people of color. And similarly, within New York City, when they first used ranked choice voting in 2021, they had never had they have a 51-person city council, which is absolutely massive. But in that 51-person city council, they had never elected more than 15 women to sit on the body at the same time. And after one round of ranked choice voting, they now have 31 out of 51 of those council members are people of color, vast majority of them being women of color, and they also elected their first 3 openly Black lesbians to that body in that same election as well. And so here we see how RCV elevates Latino candidates and voters. So in that same 2021 New York City election, we saw that about 2/3 of Latino voters ranked 3 or more candidates on their ballot, showing that communities of color, particularly the Latino community, was engaged with ranked choice voting and understood how to rank their ballots. And in addition to that, we also see that the Latino community and Hispanic candidates grow their vote totals more between their first and final rounds of ranked choice voting than white candidates do, which shows that they're able to expand their bases of voters to a much greater degree because they're able to pick up more of those transfer votes. Similarly, under ranked choice voting, it eliminates the spoiler effect for Latino candidates. For Latino candidates, because as I mentioned earlier, if under ranked choice voting, you can vote for as many people as the ballot will allow. It's typically anywhere in between 5 and 10. But instead of having to only pick one candidate that you really like, if there are multiple candidates that represent your values, then you're able to support all of them and rank them on your ballot accordingly. And then, in addition to that, under ranked choice voting, it also opens up opportunities for candidates to campaign beyond just their immediate bases of support and really grow um, those supporters from other communities. And then, in addition, RCV removes barriers to entry for elected office. And so here I wanted to go through a couple of examples showing how LGBTQ plus candidates have won under ranked choice voting. So as I mentioned in the 2 slides ago, New York City has elected its first openly gay Black women to their city council in 2021. Minneapolis elected its first Black trans woman in 2017. And Salt Lake City elected its first majority LGBTQ plus council in 2021. So in Salt Lake City, I love using this as an example. Um, but as I mentioned, so prior to 2021, they were an all-white council um, with no openly LGBTQ plus folks on that. And after one round of ranked choice voting, they went to 4 out of the 7 are people of color, and 4 out of the 7 are openly LGBTQ plus people. And so here, I also just wanted to show a couple of examples about how RCV expands AAPI representation. So we've seen AAPI representation expanded in all of the Bay Area cities that have implemented ranked choice voting. And similarly, in New York City, we saw that their first round of their first ranked choice voting election in 2021 saw 5 AAPI candidates representing communities on that council that had never been represented before. So the Korean American community, the Bangladeshi, and the Indian American communities were represented through the first elected council members to that body. And then through an exit poll of that election, we found that almost 90% of AAPI voters found that the RCV ballot was easy to use and easy to complete. And this was regardless of language spoken, age, education level, occupation, everything. So folks found that RCV really is an intuitive process for people because, again, you're just ranking in order of your preference, and that's something we do every single day. And then here, I also wanted to elevate how Black candidates win more often under RCV as well. So so over here on the far left in Bay Area, excuse me, in Bay Area cities where there was at least one Black candidate in a ranked choice voting election, we have found that they were successful 51% of the time. And similarly, in Bay Area cities where there were at least 2 Black candidates in a ranked choice voting election, they were successful almost 70% of the time. And this is compared to our current plurality system, our single choice system, where Black candidates are only successful about 38% of the time. So RCV really enables or really helps level the playing field so that more diverse representation is elected into office. And so here, I just wanted to highlight how RCV also empowers minority voters and candidates. In Santa Clara County in particular, we see that the Black turnout more than doubles between the primary and general elections in Santa Clara County. And similarly with the Latino community, we see how turnout and voter participation increases up to 150% from the primary to the general election. So this is huge. So this has huge implications on who is picking the candidates that are ultimately going to represent us. And by having a much more diverse electorate, we're able to have much more diverse representation. And just want to highlight that communities of color have shown through exit polls that they understand how RCV works and that it's not confusing. We found that 93% of voters of color found their ballots simple to complete. We also find that Black voters and Latino voters rank more candidates on their ballot than white voters do. And by ranking more candidates, it keeps your name in the game longer because if your first choice candidate is eliminated and you have a second and third choice ranked, then your vote is going to be considered for a lot long, is going to be considered further in the counting process than if you just picked one candidate and then they were eliminated. Additionally, candidates of color under ranked choice voting, there's no spoiler penalty and there's no vote splitting. So again, communities can vote for multiple candidates who represent their values. And again, candidates of color have often picked up more transfer votes than white candidates have, showing that they've been able to expand their base of voters and of support. And so, as we've been going around and talking with folks in the community, we have unfortunately found that there is some misinformation that's floating around. And the top one that we've been hearing is that folks find RCV too confusing. And the data just really doesn't bear that out. As I mentioned, we rank things all the time in our heads, whether you're a sports fan, whether you're just choosing what you want for dinner or what movie to watch. And we also have exit polling that shows, again, using New York City, and their example, 90% of all voters rank two or more candidates on their ballot, and 95% of all voters said that they found their ballot easy to complete. And this was regardless of language spoken, age, race, education level, or income level. And I also just want to highlight that in New York City, they have over 30 official languages that that their ballots need to be in, that voter information needs to be in. And so even if English was not folks' first language, they still found a ranked choice voting ballot easy to understand and to navigate. There's also the myth that if folks don't rank all of the candidates, that their vote won't count, and that's simply not true. The only way that your vote doesn't count is if you don't vote. And under ranked choice voting, you can vote for one candidate, you can vote for as many as it would allow for. As I said, it's usually in between 5 and 10. And if there are 10 candidates and you can rank 10 people, then you can rank all 10 folks if you want, and that's totally fine. And the other myth is that RCV leads to voters making more mistakes on their ballot, and the data just doesn't bear that out. Studies have shown that RCV ballots, there's no statistical significance in the difference between numbers of mistakes on RCV ballots versus ballots under our current plurality single choice system. And so here I just wanted to highlight a couple of the supporters that we have for this reform, a number of local leaders and organizations. So Supervisor Otto Lee is our big champion for this reform at the county level. And Malia Cohen, our current controller, is also a very big fan of this reform. She is publicly stated that it was because of ranked choice voting that she was able to be elected in the first place. We've also got other phenomenal leaders like Congressman Ro Khanna, Assembly members Alex Lee and Evan Lowe, who authored our bill, Senator Cortese, Senator Josh Becker, and then some local council members as well as organizations and nonprofits like the League of Women Voters, Represent Us, the Latina Coalition, More Equitable Democracy, and the Democratic Party. And then we also have the endorsements of opinion writers from the Mercury News, LA Times, San Francisco Chronicle, and East Bay Times. And so here we think that the time is right for ranked choice voting. It solves a low turnout primary issue, and it increases voter participation by holding only one election during the higher November election turnout, where it's not uncommon that we see turnout more than double from the primary. And it improves representation because when you have a more diverse base of voters participating in the elections, then you get more diverse representation. And it also promotes majority winners. Again, going back to the example of it's not uncommon in primaries where we see folks will advance to the general with less than 20% of the vote, but under ranked choice voting, We actually see that after all of the ballots are counted, the person who came in first place under a ranked choice voting election it's usually ranked on 70 to 80% of the ballots, which means that 70 to 80% of the voters think that this person can do a good job representing them, which is really big in this day and age. And it also improves campaign civility because if you're going out there and let's say I'm candidate A and I'm running against candidate B, and I'm knocking on doors and I see that this family has a lawn sign for candidate B out. Under our current system, I would just walk right past that house because I know that they're voting for my opponent. But under ranked choice voting, I can walk up to that house and say, "Hey, I see that you've got a sign out for candidate B. I agree with candidate B on XYZ issues. Please consider voting for me for your second choice." And so it really opens up a lot of dialogue between the candidates and voters that otherwise would not have happened. And it also reduces the mudslinging because if you want to be candidate B's voter's second choice, you're not going to go tell candidate B's voters how terrible of a person candidate B is because then they're not going to listen. So instead, under ranked choice voting, it promotes finding commonality and really focuses on a debate of the issues versus mudslinging and disparaging on people personally. And then lastly, it allows endorsing organizations to support multiple good candidates. So if hypothetically, if United D5 wants to endorse multiple candidates, then you guys would have the opportunity to do that instead of under our current system where you just really have to pick one. And then that could negatively harm relationships. But under ranked choice voting, that doesn't need to happen. And it keeps everything nice and positive and keeps everything a lot more friendly. So that was my presentation. I really appreciate all of your guys' time and attention to this, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Aurelia, I'll go ahead and promote you to panelist. And if you're talking, you're on mute. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Um, First of all, I'm not sure if the presentation gave correct information. Um, they're selling ranked choice voting as selecting the best candidate, but look at the problems Oakland has had just lately. All the criminals from, Oakland that have been elected. Number two, she talked about New York City. So,
Aurelia, thank you for your feedback. Do you have a question?
yes,
We try not to make this political, so let's leave politics.
okay, what I'm trying to say is this, is that I don't think ranked choice voting is for our county because it's either going to be a business candidate or a labor candidate. And because you're a person of color does not mean you are going to do right by the community. I would prefer we have it as it is because it just seems that so many people are going to run or want to run that are really not truly qualified. So I worry about that. I would rather concentrate on qualifications than on color.
Did you want to address that, Ali, or should?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, Aurelia, thank you so much for raising those points and for sharing your perspectives. I do just want to comment on the Oakland example that you gave and fully agree with you. It's really unfortunate how some elected officials have abused the public's trust and have undertaken some really negative actions and have abused their power and the trust really that voters have put into them by again by just acting in bad faith and um and acting selfishly. I do just want to highlight though that while it's very unfortunate that those people took the actions that they did, we've also had bad actors elected under our current system, and it wasn't because of ranked choice voting that those people decided to take those decisions that they did. Personally, I would argue that under our current system, we've got somebody in the White House who doesn't greatly represent the country. And so it's uh I would just like to leave you with the thought of it's not ranked choice voting that caused those politicians to make those really heinous decisions that they did. That was them as bad actors acting on their own volition. And then I also just wanted to raise to your point about unqualified candidates. Completely hear you, and that's an issue that we deal with currently in our current system today because there are again, unqualified people who decide to run for office now. But one of the great things under ranked choice voting is it really elevates the needs and the perspectives of the community. And so, I mean, you guys aren't going to get fooled if there's somebody who if there's an unserious candidate running and you can tell that they're not trying to represent you, you're not going to entertain that. And so, if you see that there's somebody who is unqualified or doesn't meet your standards for who you would vote for higher office, then you don't have to rank them. And it's really that simple. It's the same thing like in our current system, where if you think that there's someone running who's unserious or unqualified, you wouldn't vote for them. And so I really do just want to elevate those 2 points. And again, thank you for raising those comments.
Norma, I will promote you to panelist.
Okay. Yes, I'm kind of confused as well with the ranked voting. It doesn't seem like it's a good fit for our county, only because people, when they're given too many choices, they really do not think things through. They don't see the qualifications of the people. In fact, when I was voting for in the November ballots, I noticed some candidates listed the reasons why they were voting, their background, and some candidates did not submit any type of reason or qualification for their being a candidate. If this is something that is going to be left up as an option, I definitely would not want to see ranked voting, because I would want to know what is driving that candidate for that position or that seat. And if I don't have any background on that candidate, how can I make an intelligent, vote?
Mhm. No, I completely hear you, Norma, and it's the exact same thing like in our current system. If it to the exact example that you used, if somebody running in our current system doesn't put out information about them, it I completely understand why you as a voter would not want to trust them with your vote. And it's the exact same thing with ranked choice voting. Candidates who are serious and qualified will put their information out there for you to learn about, and unserious candidates will not. And again, you'll be able to distinguish between those and just like in our current system, if you think that someone's unserious, then you don't have to vote for them. Um,
Will that be something that's going to be on the actual ballot itself? Because it seems like in some it says make 5 choices. And if I were a voter and I'm being told, oh, I have to make 5 choices, well, who should I vote for?
mhm.
Uh, you know, I just would leave it blank.
Sure.
But
And that's okay.
that's something that is not very clear. And some people would just choose just because it's in the instructions.
Oh, I see. Okay, well, thank you for clarifying that. So ranked choice voting is being used all across the country right now, and so there are lots of best practices and really good examples of ballot design so that folks aren't confused by that. So it'll say you have the option of ranking up to 5 candidates or up to 10 candidates, but you don't have to rank any. And it's the same thing with voting now. So, like for example, some of our school board elections, sometimes for at-large districts, it'll say rank up to, like for me, I know I'm in the East Side Union High School District, and this past November, I could vote for up to 2 candidates to sit on that board, and it's the same thing.
Right. But doesn't that dilute your vote? Because
Mm-mm.
here, when you have a multiple of candidates and you have, fairly good candidates that are, on the fourth run, and you bring in more people or more, to the pot, then you're diluting the vote because now you have all these choices and people are going to be a little bit more confused. So then you're basically um, you're going to go with a candidate that has the most representation. Some candidates may not have the funding to campaign,
Mhm.
so you don't know very much about them. So, in other words, I feel that it's going to start diluting and making your voting less of an impact.
Well, thank you for sharing that perspective, but in ranked choice voting, it's actually quite the opposite because by being able to vote for more people, that elevates your voice and it elevates your vote. So similarly with the Eastside Union High School district that I example that I had, if I decided to vote for nobody, then that dilutes my vote because I decided not to share my voice. If I decided to only vote for one candidate, then I really only put half of my voice into that vote instead of my full voice if I decided to vote for two. And it's the same thing with ranked choice voting. It elevates your vote because your vote stays with your first choice candidate unless they get eliminated. And then once they get eliminated, then it goes to your second choice. And your
Yeah,
vote stays with that person. So it elevates your vote, it elevates your voice, and it keeps your it keeps you it gives you another bite at the apple, so to speak.
right.
And
But
and
will
and
they require, certain, let's say, qualifications for those candidates to put their name on that? Because we do have some people that have no experience whatsoever in politics and just decide, okay, I'm going to go for it.
Mhm.
But they do not really have that qualification. So is there going to be a board or someone looking to see who is running? I mean, are
Sure.
they going to have people that maybe are convicts or, do they run through a process?
I see. Okay. So, great questions. So for example, like somebody who has been convicted of a felony or like various like commissions or government agency bodies that oversee elections, those are that gets into another level of election law that is so like for example if somebody has been convicted of a felony, they do not get to run for office in our current system or under ranked choice voting. And to your question about the qualifications, if somebody's going to be vetting them on the back end, that's a question for election law. It's completely removed from the type of voting system that's being implemented. So whether it's our current system, ranked choice voting, just some of the other questions that you had relate more to election law versus the actual voting system. Did that make sense?
Some, but I really do not like that concept. I'm not in favor of rank voting.
Robert, I am going to promote you to panelist.
All right, here I am. So, I was listening to Norma's concerns, which, um, I'm kind of a chocolate kind of a guy myself. If you give me three choices of ice cream, odds are that I'm going to choose chocolate. That's
Sure.
just who I am. But, the idea of you ran out of chocolate and I don't get any ice cream at all, that sucks. So I
Mhm.
take vanilla or even strawberry at that point, but which would be a lot better. In fact, we've got a similar kind of a case going on in the third council district of San Jose.
Mhm.
We've got two progressive people, Gabby and Anthony, and I think Anthony is more likely to push the envelope than Gabby. But hey, if he doesn't get the choice and she's the one, and I'm fine with that because at least she's progressive. She's not that right-wing wacko that's also running.
Mhm.
If Norma doesn't know who these people are, then she may not be living in District 3. but the opportunity to vote on these various candidates that I may know something about, and if I only know about 3 or 4 of the 7 or 8 candidates running, I can at least register my opinion about those 3 or 4. But I sent an email to somebody earlier today because I didn't think I'd be able to get to tonight's meeting. I sent an email talking about how I generally support enthusiastically the concept of ranked choice voting because it does open up our democracy and give more power to the people in choosing who the heck is going to represent us.
Mhm.
And after years of being a supporter, I suddenly heard about this balanced vote thing where not only can I vote for candidates, but I can also vote against jerks. And, that has a lot of appeal for me, especially given what's happened at the federal level. But that's the only thing I'm really bringing to this party is this whole idea of balanced voting as an alternative to the ranked choice voting and whether anybody's really dug into it. I've just heard little bits and pieces, but I haven't really dug into it. So I'm just kind of curious. Has anybody, question mark, pass?
That's a great question, Robert. I'm not familiar with the balanced voting as you called it, but yeah, but thank you for your comments. Just while folks are deciding if they have any last minute questions or not, I'm just going to leave my email in the chat. I would love to connect with every single one of you. Aurelia and Norma, thank you so much for your comments and sharing your concerns. I'd love to connect with you offline individually in any medium that you guys would feel comfortable with, whether just over email or grabbing a coffee. And I'd really just love to, again, just hear your concerns. And if there's any information that I can continue to provide for you, I'd love to do so. I'm always just open to having a dialogue and having a conversation. But just really, really grateful to be sharing in this space with all of you tonight. And thank you for being gracious in hosting me and letting me bring you guys some information about this.
All right, and with that, I think we'll sign off. Thank you, Ali, for presenting.